Welcome everyone to the Criterion Cut, your monthly prestigious, the elite, the creme de la creme movie podcast, where we only talk about movies from the Criterion Collection. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon or via YouTube memberships, wherever you are supporting us. It's always appreciated. We're here today to do a very special, very important film. We are returning to director Henri-Georges Clouzot for Diabolique, probably his most famous film from 1955, and we're going to dive into it. We'll start spoiler-free, of course, as we always do, and we'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And there is definitely spoilers for this episode. In fact, the movie even ends with a bit of text saying, hey, don't spoil this in the foyer, the theatre, because it will be upsetting to people. So don't do it. I believe
on IMDb it says the tagline is, see it, be amazed at it, but be quiet about it.
Keep your mouth shut or we'll show up at your front door and break your legs, you piece of shit. Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, it should. Because I know Psycho did a similar thing where it wasn't in the movie, but they had like posters and standees outside saying, "Hey, don't talk about it in the lobby. Like, leave the building and then talk about it. Don't spoil it for others who are just going in." So it's one of those movies. So obviously there's some twists and turns and some reveals and things. But it is a movie. It's a thriller about two women, one who is the wife of an asshole and the other one who's the mistress of the same asshole, and they all work at a boarding school, which the husband, Michel, or Michael, or I'm going to go with Michel because it's French, but I
think that's how they pronounce it in the movie.
Yeah. But he is the principal, although it's actually the wife, Christina, who's effectively, I'd say, our main character. She is the one who actually did own the school. She's the one who actually inherited it, but he's the one who is running it. And then Nicole is the mistress who also works at the school, but the plot is about these two women who are plotting something against Michel, probably his demise, because he is a complete, utter, like, just vile human being from the word go. He's awful. So it's all about the prepping of that and the plotting things out. And the movie withholds a lot of details as it starts to unfold what they're up to and what they're doing. But Nicole seems to be the one who's more confident about it. Christina, the wife, is a lot more hesitant, a lot more nervous. And I'll leave it there. I think that's all I really want to say about the premise of the movie, because it really does take you on a bit of a ride as far as what's going on and where it's going to go. So now I had seen this before. I watched this for the first time on Blu-ray probably about 13 years ago. I imported a Region A Criterion Blu-ray and watched it. Yeah, it was great stuff. And I've seen it again since then as well. This is at least my third viewing on this. This was a first time for you with an asterisk.
I was wondering if you'd let that go.
Well, you've seen it twice now, and we have to explain why you've seen it twice, because this should have been the first viewing.
It should have been. We film decently in advance, and we've got a whole schedule going on, and I misread or misremembered the schedule, and I watched this about 2 months before I was supposed to. So I got back to it again just today.
Yes. If you go back and watch the Drunken Angel episode of this show, you'll I had to like wait an extra day to record that one because David watched the wrong movie.
Oh, you poor thing. I'm so sorry.
I'm not mad. Like for some reason you're very upset that I'm bringing this up. I don't see the big deal. It's not a huge deal. No one's.
If it's not a huge deal, you wouldn't have brought it up.
I bring up lots of things that are little deals.
Fair enough.
This is a show made up of little deals and then occasionally big deals sprinkled in for space.
So, I gotcha. So yes. I mean, I'm willing to accept this as it's hidden behind the Patreon. People have to pay to see this. It's fine.
People have to pay to see your shame because you're such an imbecile.
See, that's what I was worried about. I was worried about that exactly. But all right.
No, but I think it is worth mentioning that you have seen it twice because, it's obviously interesting to get your first time thoughts because you did sort of just experience it recently. But it also means you got to watch it again with the knowledge in mind of where it was going and going to have some different opinions because of that.
And that's definitely a thing because it is one of those movies that has all these twists and turns. I came out of it thinking, I really wish I had time to watch that again to be able to like fully get everything that it was setting up even in the early parts of the movie.
And it's almost and it's almost like your body just intervened and gave you that opportunity.
Yep. God himself smiled upon me and said, I got you, but you still need to watch Drunken Angel.
Yes. Also, I love that you flubbed that and you said God him smell.
It's the gender neutral term.
It sounded like you were saying God was smelly, as if like, what does he smell
That's
of?
true.
God him smell.
It's a bunch of brimstone and stuff up there. They just don't like to tell you that.
I thought that was hell, but okay. I thought
on earth as it is below.
I thought upstairs it was all clouds and I guess farts. Farts are clouds.
Apparently, I don't know how true it is, but someone went through the Bible and picked out things where they specifically said like how warm it is and stuff like that. And they figured out that hell, based off of like melting points of elements and such like that, at most can only be like 500 degrees. Whereas heaven, based off of it saying like, and the very crystals melted or something like that, has to be like over 10,000 degrees.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually extremely warm up there.
Oh, okay. All right, well. I learned something today. Anyway, this all came from David being an idiot and watching the movie.
You're welcome.
But that said, I am going to ask the question because I still think it's it's still effectively a first time for you, even if you have watched it twice now over the past month and a half. What did you think of Diabolique?
I think it's good. I definitely think that it is a very tight movie. It's got its plot and it doesn't really waste a lot of time with extra stuff. It doesn't feel like it's ever just plotting, and it's a good 2 hours long, so it's got an intricate plot to feel like it's got that much going for it. I will say I think I prefer Wages of Fear. I think that was a more well done and interesting movie in my opinion, but this one definitely had its upsides to it. I'm not saying in any regard it's a bad movie. I do think it is one of those things that, because of living in the modern age where people have seen this movie and have done variations on it, have expanded on it, done different versions of it, it almost seems a little bit basic in a lot of ways, but in the same sort of way that Psycho seems basic, where it's just because we've seen as a modern audience the same sort of thing over and over again in the kind of like thriller twists that it ends up pulling. But I can understand that back in its time, it was very much a unique sort of twist and interest they were going for there.
It's interesting. I have that problem either with this or with Psycho, as far as, what you were saying there. Yeah, I love this movie. I think and maybe the reason why I prefer this a little over Wages of Fear, to give that opinion out of the way, is that I saw this first, and maybe there's something to that because you saw Wages of Fear first. I don't know.
I did.
But I love both. I think they're both masterpieces in their own ways. I think they both accomplish incredible things. I think they both have very wonderfully done tense sequences. There's some excellent cinematography in this when it's doing certain very specific moments that I can't spoil, but it's playing with shadows, it's playing with the fear of something there and what's going on that we're not seeing. And I think it is very intricate. It's a movie of two halves. The first half is very much what the plan is, and then the second half is all the fallout of the plan, but obviously there's a bit more to it as well. And I think that structure works very well, and it does feel very Hitchcock in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting that this comes before not all of Hitchcock's big stuff, but certainly some of them. So certainly the ones that I might compare it to more, I feel like this comes a little bit before. So I don't know if Hitchcock took some influence here, or if this is just a case of, no, Clouzot was very much France's answer to Hitchcock, and he was doing stuff that was on par with what Hitchcock was doing, because it feels that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of trivia for this one that basically all says the same thing of it was based off of an original novel, and Clouzot managed to buy the rights reportedly just a few hours before Hitchcock tried to buy the rights.
That does not surprise me one bit. Yeah. It feels like something that was up both their alleys, and I think Hitchcock stuck to not one type of thing, but it definitely felt like Hitchcock made a lot of thrillers that were in the same kind of wavelength. He did lighthearted stuff as well. I feel like Clouzot is a bit more ranged just based on what I've seen from him. I don't think Wages of Fear, for example, feels very Hitchcocky, but this does. This feels like it's something that Hitchcock could have made. No, it's great. I think the build up and the kind of the unraveling of what the plan is, like early on, like I think the audience is always asking a question, right? Every time you're like when you're watching this movie, just throughout the first part, it's like, okay, what are they up to? What are they doing? Okay, I think I kind of get that, but how are they doing it? Okay, I kind of get that, and then once stuff plays out, it's like, okay, but how, where, and then but are we doing this or are we doing that? And I can't really spoil what those later questions are, but
right,
I think it's always got the audience asking a very simple question, and I think it's very well constructed because of that. So it never lets up. I think it is a phenomenal thriller that has one of the best endings of any thriller really.
Yeah,
does.
that's the thing. I think that this movie, it's very tense the whole way through. It does a great job at keeping the suspense going. Even once, like you said, it's of two halves. Even once the first half is completed, it doesn't ever really let up. It's just a consistent flow, and it just changes what the tension is coming from very naturally. But I think once it hits the ending of it, that's where it really just throws it all in and says, here you go. This is the explosive ending that you're looking for.
And it is. And
yeah.
It's funny because I consider this to be one of my favorites, and I probably would, thinking about it, rank it above just about any Hitchcock movie, with maybe one exception. Like, I think this and Rear Window are they're both in my top 10. They're both fighting for the higher placement. And I think, Psycho's fantastic. Psycho is also a masterpiece. I rate Psycho very highly, but I do think the ending of this is stronger. And I don't know if that's just because the ending of Psycho is more maybe like parodied or more
right.
Whereas I think Diabolique's ending does hold up as being very unique. If not in like what the core concept is, how it's presented feels very stark and unique even today. And it's it's been 70 years or whatever. So
yeah,
excellent stuff.
I mean, that's the sort of thing that I was trying to get at, is that when I say that it's been 50 years and there's been plenty of movies that have come by and they've worked on this sort of theme, this sort of movie, it's not so much that this one is lessened because of it. It just becomes more familiar, the sort of ideas that they play with and things like that. So because it's a mystery, because it's a thriller, if you do end up getting to a point where you can make a prediction about something just based off of the things you've already seen in the meantime, it is that sort of, it robs it without any fault of the movie its own, where it's just because of other things playing with those same ideas.
Yeah, that's where I'm not really feeling the same thing, because to me, when I'm watching this or I'm watching Psycho, I'm impressed by like how the scenes are being handled. I'm impressed by the genuine kind of like, it's because it's almost like when something tries to redo something from one of those movies, they try and add more layers on top to like, okay, we're going to be different because we're doing this extra gimmick on top, or we're doing this extra thing. And I think the dedication to, because I would still describe this plot as quite complex for what it is. Like maybe
absolutely.
Maybe in some ways it feels like other things have tried to go further than this does, but I think this is very complex without ever going too complex. Because I think some thrillers like go very convoluted, and I don't think this ever feels convoluted. I think this, no, it feels like you get what it's doing, and by the time it's played all its cards and it's revealed its hand, I think you get what the movie was doing the entire time, and now you have the full context of it. And obviously, if you've seen it more than once, and you can go in with the knowledge of where it's going, you can kind of like pay attention. You can watch for everything that's happening and read it all. So I was blown away when I saw this for the first time. And I don't think in any way it was ever hurt by me seeing, more generic thrillers that we're stealing from. I know there was a remake in the 90s, which I have not seen.
Yes.
Starring Sharon Stone of all people. Sounds like an extra reel someday, to be honest.
I mean, just as a clarification, this movie on IMDb has a low 8, whereas Diabolique of the 90s has a 5.4. So, yeah, it doesn't seem great.
Yeah. And well, low 8 doesn't sound that high. That's actually very high in IMDb.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Is there even anything that hits a 9 on IMDb? I'm not sure if there is. Maybe one or two.
I'm sure somewhere in the top 250 there's a.
Well, at the top. That's somewhere.
Yeah. Let's see here. Shawshank Redemption's 9.3. And
Okay,
it stays above 9 until you get to number 8, which is Pulp Fiction at an 8.9.
So there's only 7 movies?
As long as it's done by rating, yes. There's only
yeah.
7 movies.
The only exception is if there's something with so few ratings, they won't count it yet.
Right.
And that's fair enough, because let's say you make a little film that only your friends and family see and they all give it a 10. You can't exactly be, hot-shotting that to the top of the top 250.
I mean, that's how I was pimping myself out for my little itty-bitty student films. I was like, yeah, no, everyone who watched it said they loved it. Wink. But yeah, no, the only thing that's got a 9 is Shawshank Redemption, first 2 parts of The Godfather, 12 Angry Men, Schindler's List, and Dark Knight.
Okay. See, well, I mean, I was just saying, because I think a low 8 sounds low.
It does, yeah.
For being, like, prestigious, but it's actually very high on IMDb. Very few movies get into the 8s. Never mind, higher, and like we said, only 7 get to the 9 and up. So, and let's face it, this is a 1955 French film. There's not enough mainstream audience rating this one. Never mind highly to get it up there. So anyway, yes, it's very good. It's funny because I want to talk about some of the actors a little bit, but one of the main things I want to talk about I actually can't until we get to spoilers because of something that it relates to.
Okay.
So, we'll just leave it there. Obviously, we probably don't know who these people are anyway because it's French actors from the 50s.
The only one that I think is for this show specifically is Christina, played by Véra Clouzot, was the female lead, quote unquote, in Wages of Fear.
Sure, yeah, in the bar. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, who's Mrs. Clouzot, effectively. That's Henry's wife.
Yep.
But
I mean, this role is entirely separate from what she played in Wages of Fear.
Yeah, I mean that was a supporting role. She is the lead actor in this. She is it's very much a trio of actors and performances, but she is the lead of the 3 of them, certainly.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
anytime you see any sort of poster or anything, odds are it's her somewhere on there.
Yeah, it's her looking kind of shocked. That's typically the poster for this. The title translates as a couple of different. I've seen it translated as the Fiends. I've seen it translated as the Devils. But typically, it's just referred to as Diabolique in English-speaking territories, where it's Les Diaboliques in native France. Just because it's a cool title, you don't have to translate it to anything. It works on its own.
It's the same thing with Les Miserables. Like you just keep it. You don't have to translate it to The Miserable Ones. You just call it Les Mis. Yeah,
because that sounds shit. It sounds. It's got some class and mystique when you keep it in the French.
Absolutely.
So yes, Diabolique sounds good, right? Because it sounds like diabolical, right? Billy Butcher from The Boys is smelling somewhere because there's a movie called Diabolical or close to
it. I don't know how you managed to bring up The Boys in this review, but good job. You did it.
Hey, just you wait for the Buffy reference later. It's coming.
Oh, I'll see it when it happens.
So, honestly, I feel like it's probably spoiler time because I feel like I don't know if we can talk about much of the plot without spoilers.
Yeah, honestly, that's the biggest problem with sort of mystery thrillers is that you could only give the most surface layer thing before you're like, and we need to talk about the plot.
I think the important thing is, though, is I absolutely 100% recommend this. Go in cold, just go for the ride, and enjoy the journey because
the more cold you can go in, the better. Like I would say, don't even bother with the IMDb page because even then I think that the little tagline, the little one-line synopsis for the movie, it's even then it's giving away enough that the first half of the movie kind of loses a bit of tension because of it.
Yeah. Just go in cold and have at it. But chances are, if you care about the Criterion Collection, you probably might have seen this already, and certainly if you like this show, maybe because we always tell you what's coming next, so you if you want to, you can watch the next Criterion movie before we talk about it. So hopefully you did, and with that, spoilers, ahoy, for Diabolique from this point on. You have been warned. So, they're bastards, aren't they? They're bastards. The pair of them.
Are we just gonna refer to them as the pair of them?
Well, obviously, I'm not talking about the two women. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the husband and the mistress, because it turns out that they're the ones who are actually up to... That's the beauty of this movie, is that the first half of the film is the plan to kill the husband, but then the twist at the end is that the entire movie is the plan to kill the wife. That's the beauty of it.
I feel like there's a way to word this properly where you can give away the final twist while still describing the main plot, where you say like, oh, a mistress and De La Salle team up to kill De La Salle's spouse or something.
Yeah. Maybe principal, because technically she should be the principal, but he's kind of taking it from her and he's acting principal. So
the head of the school.
The head of the school, yes. The owner of the school. But that's even more. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the owner of the school and a mistress team up to kill someone. Like, you could say that, and it's technically describing both what you think's happening in the middle, but also the ending. Yeah, very good. Very good. So, if anything, she might even be the worst of the two, because she's like playing this part the whole time.
Oh yeah, no, she's absolutely... I mean, it's strange, because obviously throughout the movie, she plays sympathetic. She plays as though she is best friends with Christina. Whereas the only things we ever get of Michel is he's the worst. Just everything he does is abusive / just asshole the whole way through.
Oh, he's awful to his staff. He's awful to his wife. He openly has a mistress, and everyone just kind of knows about it and just kind of accepts it.
It's one of those things where I wonder if that's a difference in like French culture, but it seems like it's not. It seems like he is just an asshole.
No, he's just the worst. I mean, maybe they handled it a little differently back in the days in France, but I feel like he's still meant to be the villain here for doing this.
Oh yeah.
In the way he like demands his wife eat something she doesn't want to. You need to set an example for the children, but my favorite part of this is that, no, you must eat it. I can't, because it's not good for my liver, but you should eat it.
Yeah. He's a hypocrite. He's awful.
Yeah, and demands
my favorite part to show how awful he is that when the plan is put into motion, the wife and the mistress go off and they leave the school, and the principal is unaware of it, and vacation is coming up. So he just turns to two of the other teachers there who are about to leave on vacation. He's like, well, one of you's going to have to stay behind. It ain't going to be me.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been all nice to him until he realizes he has to go and chase his wife somewhere. And he's like, no, you, one of you need to stay back now. No vacation for you. He's a piece of work. In fact, honestly, we're kind of joking about all these like really awful husband things, but it gets even worse than that, because at the end of the dinner scene where all the kids leave the cafeteria, the end of the scene implies that he rapes her, or at the very, like forces himself upon her, because that's her duty as a wife. It fades to black and you hear her kind of scream and say no, and then it's just them waking up the next day after that, and it's like, is that what it is like every night? He just, when he decides he wants it, he just takes it.
It's messed up. It's a messed up scene. And I think that's the darkest it really gets with him and his behavior, until obviously the ending, where it shows just how far he actually went. But but by the time they did the whole swallow the fish scene, I was already on board. I was like, nope, kill him. Do it.
Yeah, kill this prick. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the scene that's designed to make the audience go, oh, this guy is awful. The scene starts with him forcing her to eat something, and it ends with implied sexual assault. So it's like, okay.
Wasn't there a sequence somewhere in the middle there where basically he tells her, like, yeah, go ahead, drop dead already, so I'll get all your money?
Yeah, no, because she mentions early on she's got a heart condition, and he's like, yeah, go on, go kill yourself. I mean, I'll inherit your school, and I can sell it like I wanted to and make a bunch of money. And so, good riddance. Which is actually foreshadowing of the ending, because that's what they're hoping for. They're hoping for a heart attack.
Yep.
So, I mean, the first half of the movie, it sets up the school, it sets up these three central characters. The way that he comes in and sort of yells at both of them for talking to each other. He's like, what are you playing at? Now, obviously, we know from the ending that he's actually wanting this because him and the mistress are colluding. And maybe that's the first mistake, the true mistake that the wife makes, Christina, is that she befriends, like she lets the mistress befriend her, as if like, oh, we're best buddies now, even though I'm the wife and you're the mistress. In hindsight, maybe, she should have never trusted her husband's mistress. Maybe conflict of interest there. But at the same time, you understand why, though, like, oh, we both know he's awful. But I'm like, you're the mistress. Why don't you just leave? Like,
I mean, when we get introduced to the mistress, the very first time we see her, she's got a black eye because of him.
Which I assume, for the sake of their plan, is an intentional thing. It's not, either it's makeup or she's intentionally said, all right, go on, hit me.
Yeah.
I'm doing it here. I'm right here. Do it now. Come on, kill me. I'm here.
I would love to hear Arnold's voice just randomly in this movie.
I'm assuming Nicole, the mistress, is the character that Sharon Stone plays in the remake. I mean, I could be wrong, but she looks more like Sharon Stone in the two. So I made the assumption.
Not sure. Hold on. I've got it pulled up here. Let's see. I mean, assuming they kept the names the same.
They may not have, yeah. They may be like Amy.
No, Sharon Stone is Nicole Horner.
Okay.
But they changed De La Salle. Christina De La Salle was changed to Mia Baron. So I don't know why they kept the one and changed the other, but there you go.
Well, Nicole Horner already sounds pretty un-French, so they can get away with that. Also, I never realized that's how you pronounce their surname, to be honest. So French is so weird. I can't do it. I just can't do it. So yeah, all this set up to establish how bad he is, and Nicole's like prodding her and saying, hey, like, it's time, like, this weekend, the 3-day weekend, we're going to have an alibi. I'm going back to my hometown where I own a place. And it's like, you're coming with me. And right away, Christina clearly is nervous about it, is wanting to kind of chicken out at every opportunity. And I think that actually leads to one of my favourite things in the whole movie is, so they get to the start of this 3-day weekend, the two ladies sort of sneak out at the start of the day with the school truck. It's just this little truck. And they drive to her hometown, Noir, something like
that. French.
Yeah, French. And they go in there and like they even set up, we've got alibi witnesses because there's this couple who are renting like the upstairs of the house and we're staying down here, right? And we'll get to them as characters. I want to talk about them. Don't you worry.
Yeah. They're great.
I've got some side characters that I want to talk about who are kind of quirky, but they are here and it's like, okay, the plan is just to phone the husband and tell him you want a divorce, and that'll piss him off and that'll make him come out here. But they're banking that he's going to do that discreetly because he doesn't want to have to explain to people that he's having to chase after his wife who wants to leave him. He's too proud for that. He doesn't want to tell anyone that. But
he's very much about keeping up appearances.
The whole plan, of course, is to make him drink wine that they've spiked with just a sedative. It's not poison. It's not going to kill him. That's not the death itself. But they're going to make him drink this wine. And like, okay, we've got a table. We're going to set the wine out. We'll open it so it doesn't look suspicious. It's already had a glass. But they spike it with this stuff. And my favourite thing about all this, I love the build up to this and like seeing the plan play out, but you've got Nicole away somewhere else with the neighbours. So Christina's on her own, the husband's showing up, and the shot of him walking in the street before he gets there is, it's beautiful. It's just like the cobbled street in the shadow, and just to hear the footsteps, and Christina's scared, and she's like, the tension of him coming is really getting to her. Beautiful filmmaking. But when he gets in, and he's talking to her and he's belittling her, and there's a whole song and dance about her saying she's like talked to a lawyer, and she hasn't really, but she's trying to like sell the story better, and it all builds up to him going to take a drink, and she stops him the first time by just sort of like using her hands to put the bottle down, and the second time he goes to take a drink and she sort of doesn't hit him but like bumps into him and it spills all over him and he gets really angry about that. So even in this scene where he's being awful the entire time, he's being controlling, he's being abusive, she still doesn't want to do it. And then, after she spilled the drink, he comes over and he slaps her twice. He does a sort of slap and a backhand, sort of in one swift kind of motion, and belittles her again. And I love this detail, is she walks over and she pours the drink this time. Like, she makes the choice after he pushes the line, he goes a little bit too far. And what's so great is that, from the ending, is that he wants them to go through with this plan. Right. So he's intentionally pushing her. But I love in the context of the scene, the first time you watch it, is that you can read it a cynical way, in that she's actually being such a good actress in the scene that she is making this look so unsuspicious because she's like trying to not have him drink it, and she's making him sort of like want it. It's the perfect con job. It's like, no, you make the mark want the thing. They're making the choice to do it. You're not pushing it on them.
The reverse psychology. Where like, you can't have a drink, I won't let you. But pshaw.
But the beauty of it is I don't think that's what she's doing at all. I think she's genuinely hesitant, doesn't want to go through with it, and then he pushes her beyond that line, And it's such a great moment because she is making the choice to pour the drink, and then she pours him another one. Like, she's like, yeah, drink up, you fuck. Like, I'm going to watch you die.
That's a consistent thing in this first half with her character, is that she, as soon as she's given like a little bit of space and time away from Michelle, she immediately starts backpedaling. She's immediately like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm not okay with this. But then once she's forced to spend any sort of time with him at all, she's reminded of how bad things are, and she continues forward with the plan.
Yeah. It does make you wonder as well. Like, obviously he is an asshole. He's an evil piece of shit. But I wonder, this way he's treating her so badly from the start of the movie, like, has he been intentionally ramping this up for a while? Like, how long is this plan to like give her a heart attack been in place? Like, if they've been like saying, hey, no, you need to like make her want to kill you, so has he been like turning it up? Like, and that doesn't make him any better. I mean, even if he's only forcing himself upon her with that goal in mind, he's still doing it. The fact that he's calculated maybe even makes it worse. But you know, just a thought to have.
That's what I actually like the most thinking about this movie after the fact, is that because the entire plan is to give her a heart attack, basically put her in more and more stressful situations until her heart just gives out. At every point in this movie, they are basically planning not only for his death to make sense, but also for hers. Like, if she were to actually have had a heart attack just during this first murder scene, everything still works out. Like, the entire alibi still holds because she also snuck out in the morning and didn't tell anybody. Like, everything still works out just as much as it does for them trying to kill the husband as well. So it's very clever in that way.
Yeah. And obviously the husband was never going to stay dead. He wants to sell the school at the end. The plan was always to be like, oh no, I was just gone for a few days, no big deal. Because by the end of the movie, like, the only people who think he's supposed to be dead really is Christina and Nicole, technically, but obviously not really. But yeah. So, yeah, I think all this build-up is fantastic. I think even afterwards, which is the slow murder of him, because it's not like, you know, Nicole doesn't just come in and that's it, slit his throat. No. They push him under the water in the bath, and then she puts it's the tablecloth she puts over it as like a tarp. And obviously, in hindsight, you're thinking, well, this is because he's got room to breathe and not give it away to Christina and so on. Which also makes me think that, was there anything really in that like sedative? Was that really something to put him out, or is he just...
Yeah, I think it was playing the whole time.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. But I suppose we have to talk about the neighbours at this point, because we're talking about the bathtub.
Yes, we do.
So the neighbours really like the radio, right? They're listening to their shows upstairs. And Nicole was up there with them for a bit and enjoying the radio with them.
And it is worth noting that Nicole is essentially the landlord. She owns the whole building.
Yes.
And she's just renting out the upper floor to them.
Yeah, which they said at one point she needs the money too, and I'm like, but you're a landlady. You've got people renting from you. Like, surely you're okay with that.
I mean, you say that, but I know that in other cultures outside of, like, you know, before the 1970s, before like real estate became a whole huge thing, landlords weren't actually that loaded.
Oh, okay. See,
there's only once they pumped up the rent insanely.
Yeah, when I think of landlords now, I think of evil, vile scum who are sucking the blood and life force out of everyone that lives in their places. But yeah, that's
reality. You're thinking the right thing.
Yes. Yeah. Certainly in Western culture, anyway. I don't know how different it is elsewhere, but But anyway, when they turn on the bathtub, though, right? It turns out to be very loud, and the neighbor gets mad because he can't hear his radio show properly, and he starts getting really, the bitches, and their mothers are bitches.
That's an exact quote.
That's an exact quote. Yeah, and I was like, okay. I mean, he says, at 10 p.m. That's ludicrous, and I'm like, I mean, it's not that weird a time to go for it. If you want to go for a bath before bed, that seems like a normal time to me. But fine. He's upset about it, but then he's so livid. He's like, I'm not going to go to bed until I hear it strained, because I don't want to go to sleep next to Niagara Falls. And all I could think was, honestly, running water's quite soothing to me. I think that would sound quite nice to fall asleep to. But
here's the thing: I can understand that, like, maybe the pipe system is set up in a way where the water, you know, all the pipes creak when the water comes in. Regardless, that's fine. I can get that. But draining is just them popping it open and the water goes down. They're on the top floor. I don't understand how he's going to be woken by that.
What I love even more, though, is that it gets to the next day, right? And obviously they're going to take the body back with them in this wicker basket that they've brought with them, this wicker
Trunk, yeah.
And, part of the fun of it is they've even got the neighbours helping them, like, carry it out to the truck. But she goes to drain the bathtub the next, like, day, and it's not even morning, it's, like, lunchtime, and the guy's like, I didn't get any sleep last night, I was waiting for that tub to drain, and so I never went to bed. And he starts taking off his waistcoat, he's like, okay, I'm going to get a nap now in the afternoon. And then the water starts draining, and he gets so livid, and I'm like, you can't be mad at them for doing the noisy thing at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean,
Yep.
I think they're well within the right to drain their bathtub whenever they feel like it, but you can't be mad that they waited till the next day when it's not sleeping hours.
No, he is 100% just a cartoon character, because
Yes.
I absolutely love the transition here. He's banging on the floor, their ceiling, with his shoe, and he's like, God damn you, I can't wait until you leave. Smack, smack, smack. Hard cut to him carrying the trunk out with him, being like, oh, it's a shame that you have to go so soon. We really enjoyed the company.
Yeah, it's the classic ironic cut. I love a good ironic cut. But it's all good. And there's some tension here because the string breaks on the basket, and like they want to, like, hey, you should empty some stuff out, and they're like, no, don't open it, we'll tie it together just now, just this'll do. And that's sort of like, so you've got a bit of tension here as they're on their way back, and obviously the final part of the plan is where they're going to put the body so someone can discover it. And the plan obviously is they've drowned him so that when he's found in a swimming pool, which is what their plan is that won't look suspicious, it'll just look like he drowned. Same reason why they're trying to give her a heart attack ultimately is because, hey, that doesn't imply a murderer. That doesn't imply anyone did anything, because she just
got a bad heart.
Yeah. And they ramp that up as well in the back half of the movie. She's getting a little bit weaker. They have a doctor come see her and tell her, you do not go around. You stay in bed. You're on the brink. He even says to his colleague in the car that, hey, we could have brought her to the clinic, but honestly, she's touch and go, and like if she dies at the clinic, that's bad for business because people don't like seeing a hearse outside the clinic. They think that looks bad. Like, that's the death building. You don't go there. You'll just die there.
Well, just to slightly transition off that, I think that they do a great job in the back half of the movie. They make a couple references every once in a while that Michel is really, really good at swimming and diving. One character even calls him like a fish. He's that good at it. And they keep on bringing that up seemingly as a point of trying to make it more tense that no one's going to believe the drowning thing, that like it wouldn't make any sense for him to be drowned and that's how they're going to be caught. When in actuality, it's just them pointing out like, no, he was able to hold his breath long enough to make it look like he was drowned in that bathtub, but in actuality he survived.
And keep in mind, all he has to convince is Christina. That's the only person he has to convince. No one's coming in and checking, that he's dead or anything like that. It's just her. So, and by extension, what we see, but we only ever see the glimpses she has. We never get any more, obviously, in those parts of the movie.
Yeah, very quick. It spends maybe like 2-3 seconds showing whatever she sees, and then it just cuts to the next scene.
Yeah.
And you never get to see the point where he has to come up after 30 seconds like, Jesus Christ.
Well, one of the things I like about the ending is that when he does the whole creepy get out of the bathtub thing, is he mentions to Nicole that it took him an hour to get into the bathtub without anyone hearing him. I love that little detail of being like, yeah, it was a lot of work pulling this off. There was a lot of dedication involved because it's not easy. So...
Why doesn't anyone feel bad for me, the murderer?
Yeah, the tension here is really good because it's them putting the body in the pool and making sure the right people see them at the right time so they're not under suspicion. They've got this alibi, and then the next maybe 15-20 minutes of the movie is Christina almost having a heart attack repeatedly, waiting for someone to find his body in the pool, only to be absolutely shocked that when they eventually drain the pool that there's no body, and they're like, where is he? And this is the point in the movie where, are they going supernatural with it? Because I think they want you to think that maybe they're doing he's haunting her from beyond the grave kind of thing. Because we get all these surreal moments where, someone's delivered a suit. One of the children say that he saw the principal, and everyone's like, no, that's not right. He's missing. No, you didn't see him. You're lying. But obviously the audience are like, maybe he is. Maybe he is telling the truth.
And it's worth noting that up to this point, Nicole has been straight-headed the whole time. She's the one who's just like, don't worry about it. We shouldn't be hanging around here, though, because we don't want it to look like this. She's calmly thinking through everything. But this part where the pool is drained is where she finally does a turn, and she starts playing up the, okay, I don't know what's going on here either, Christina. This is really weird.
She's playing her role well. This is all designed to make Christina get more agitated, to get more scared, more tense. to get her heart going, basically. And then it went. Is how the movie
By the end, yeah.
ends.
It took a little extra push, but they got there.
Yeah. It's a lot, the sanity's a lot like gravity. All it takes is a little push.
Back when you were doing the Arnold quote of "Come on, do it," I first thing that went through my mind was the Joker quote of "Come on, hit me. I want you to do it. I want you to do it. Come on, hit me."
Okay. I was doing a Predator reference, but yeah.
I know.
But don't worry, I came back around, did Dark Knight later, so we're covered. We're covered now. Covered our bases. Yeah, I think, all this stuff in the back half where you get to the point where she goes investigating this dry cleaner because someone asked for this suit to be delivered, but...
Yeah, this is where they really switch over to the full either he never actually died or his ghost is going around town doing chores.
Yes.
Because his suit that he was wearing that night is delivered back to his room fully dry cleaned. And they're like, that's not possible. Did you see the man who did it? And he's like, nope, I'm the delivery boy. Bye.
Yeah, and she goes to the place that he's supposedly staying. She got that from the dry cleaners, and the guy's like, yeah, I've never seen him. He's like a weird tenant, and like he doesn't keep anything here, but the bill's paid, so it is what it is. And then ultimately, there's a body found, which Nicole tries to sell as this is him. They found him. He's in the river somehow. And Christina's like, but how? How could he be in the river? Like, who moved him? And that's like a little mystery in and of itself. Well,
see, that's the part that on the second watch through, once I realized, he was never actually dead. This is the part that I realized is the only thing that could not have been a part of their plan.
Oh, that's another body was found. Yeah.
Yeah. And this ultimately ends up being their downfall. This ultimately ends up being their biggest problem is that Christina sees this and goes and investigates it more than they would have hoped.
Yeah, she goes to the morgue and asks to see the body to maybe identify it. And maybe it's a different cultural thing, especially in this time period in France. But I thought they usually welcome someone to come and identify the body. But this guy at the morgue is like, oh, you have to prove you might know who he is. So give me a bunch of details about him. And she has to answer all these questions about maybe... He tries to trick her by saying, oh, what about the bracelet? He's like, he doesn't have a bracelet. You're correct. He doesn't have a bracelet. You've passed.
You remember that scene back in Zodiac where people were just coming in claiming to be Zodiac because they gave all the same details that were in the paper? France had a real problem with that.
Apparently so, because this guy is meticulous in making sure, which actually makes it all the more kind of like a big deal for her, I think, in the moment when she sees the body and goes, oh, that's not him. Like, after all that build-up, it's not him. Like, he's still missing. Yep. So that's a good moment. I don't think they were expecting her to go and actually check the body. And of course, like you said, the knock-on effect from this is that there's this guy hanging out at the morgue who is an ex-police commissioner even, but he is now a private investigator. And he's like, okay, so you're here looking for a body because someone's missing, and let me talk to you about that. I actually love the moment where he like pulls out his identification, because the way it just goes silent as she's looking at this is like, oh, the police are finally involved. Like, it's not the way she was expecting him to become involved, but now she's talking to a police officer. Well, kind of. He's retired, but he's investigating. Yeah. He's poking around.
It's one of those things where, it's the scene where somebody has committed a crime, there's evidence of it in their house, and then all of a sudden there's a knock at the door and it's the police. Yeah. And even if they're there for some completely other reason, you as an audience are like, they're going to figure it out. They're here now. The police are that competent.
She's been on edge so much for like 40 minutes by this point that this feels like a huge deal that there's a policeman talking to her. Although I do want to pause here and talk about the taxi driver here, who also stuck out to me as being a bit of a character, just because she goes up to the taxi driver and says, hey, I want to go back to the school here. And he's like, are you mad? That would take me so far out my way. I'm like, you're a taxi driver. You drive people to their destination. Like, you're annoyed about having to go through the traffic, like, busy part of the city. You weirdo.
He would have immediately quit his job the moment Uber came out, because he sounds exactly like Uber drivers there.
Oh dear, that's too inconvenient. If you want to go somewhere more easy to get to, I'll take you.
You're taking me out of the hotspot zone, lady. I gotta stay here because this is where all the fares are.
Yeah, but most of the people in the hotspot who want to go somewhere want to go out of the hotspot because that's where they live, you idiot.
He's not a smart cab driver, but he's able to make some money, apparently.
Oh, just foolish. I just feel like he's not going to go far in this world with that attitude.
No, definitely not.
That's the great thing, is that when she comes back and she's still talking, this detective's like came with her back to the school, and he's talking to her and asking her questions. He's asking the caretaker questions, because we've not really mentioned them, but there's like a couple of other teachers and a caretaker who are kind of recurring minor characters who are just commenting on what's going on. We get a lot of exposition about like how the other, like, you know, especially at the start, they talk about who the wife is, who the mistress is. We get a lot of detail from them.
There's one guy who specifically says, like, can you believe it? The wife is best friends with the mistress. Who would have thought? And it's like, thank you. I needed that relation, Mr. You.
Yeah. But we also get like stuff from the kids as well, actually, when they get back, where even they seem to know that he's got a wife and a mistress, and like, yeah, that's normal. When I grew up, I'm going to have 5 women and stuff, because it's all boys. It's like a boys' boarding school.
Oh, it's entire boys' school, yeah.
He's a dick to the students as well. We didn't mention that, but he's like punishing the students even when they don't really deserve it.
Yeah, they had a scene where someone was just like doing a little cold drawing or something on the side of the building, and Christina comes out and says, now, if you keep drawing that, you're going to be held back from vacation. And he's like, all right, I'll stop. And he starts to walk away. And then the principal comes out and just like, you heard her, you're held back from vacation. He's like, ah, damn it.
Yeah, good cop, apocalyptic cop.
Yeah.
I think is what they call that. Good
cop, executioner.
Yeah, okay, that's actually better. Yeah. But when she comes back with the detective, it's notable, especially on a repeat viewing when you know what's actually going on, is that Nicole's at the window and looks very distressed that she's talking to someone from law enforcement. Mm-hmm. She's like, who is this? And it's like, because this is, like you say, the first thing that's not really a part of their plan. This is something else that they didn't account for. Who is this and why is he poking around? And of course, you know, he gets a lot of information from Christina about the suit, where he was. Obviously, she doesn't tell him all the true things that they're hiding, but, you know, it's enough that he starts to go looking into things. So
yeah. No, it's super interesting the way that's structured, because obviously for 2 people, if we just follow what the movie is presenting, these 2 people murdered a man. Having a detective poke around is not good in any regards. But then, like you said, on the repeat viewing, you see how Nicole reacts and you realize, oh, she's also upset, but not for the reasons that we think she is.
And a weird thing, on a repeat viewing, you kind of realize that this guy is actually the only hope Christina has. And he doesn't save her, of course, but he is ultimately the one who catches the bad guys at the end, because he does have a suspicion.
And Christina, of course, being blissfully naive to the whole thing, is trying to push him away. As soon as he says, like, huh, that's weird, she's like, well, I guess I'll pay you. You don't need to look into this any further. Bye now. The
entire dynamics of it are really good on a first viewing, and they're even more intricate on a second viewing when you realize she's dooming herself by not helping him. It's really quite something, because he's asking the kids questions about the basket, and he's looking at it, and, you know, he's poking his nose at everything. Like, okay, his lighter was at the bottom of the swimming pool, and they found it when they drained the pool. That's interesting. So he looks into that. You know, he's looking at all this stuff, and obviously that leads to his presence at the end, where he catches them and overhears the bad guys talking about their plan.
Yep.
So, but all of this, you know, I think the final big creepy thing that really sets off Christina is the school photo. And I love this. I thought this was a great, because again, if as in a first viewing we were thinking, are they going supernatural with this? This really feels like, oh, are they doing a thing here where he is literally a ghost at the school now, like haunting her? Because they take this school photo and they keep talking about how the principal's meant to be in it, so one of the other teachers is there instead, and they take the photo, but when they get the photo back, and Nicole notices this, and this is obviously intentional to you know, make Christina worried. She runs up to Christina, shows her the photo with the magnifying glass, and would you believe it, if you look in the window in the background, it looks like he's standing there. And he's in shadow, you can only see like a part of his face, but it looks like, it's the sort of thing you would see in like, hey, is this photo haunted kind of thing?
It's that shot from 3 Men and a Baby with the ghost in the back of the window. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. Actually, it took me a second to realize, like, why are you bringing up 3 Men and a Baby? Oh, no, I remember this meme. Okay.
Yeah. It was actually just like a cardboard cutout of, I think it was like Ted Danson or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a ghost. Spooky.
Yeah. But it's good though. It looks fantastic. It's a creepy moment. And
well, it's also, it's just before the scene, we get a little extra bit where there's a kid who broke a window with a slingshot.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and he is punished, and he's told to like pick up stuff off the ground by the missing principal, by Michelle. And all the other teachers are like, he's been missing for 5 days, kid. What in the hell are you talking about? And he's like, I promise you, he confiscated my slingshot and he told me to do this. And everyone's like, all right, well, if you can't tell the truth, go stand in the corner. He's like, oh man. But then they go into the office and they discover, no, the slingshot was actually confiscated. It's here now. How the hell did it get here?
Yeah, so they're really drumming up this whole he's coming from beyond the dead for Christina thing at this point. But of course, I think we believe the kid at this point. I think it's okay, he definitely saw something. Whether it was a real person or a ghost, he saw something. And likewise, I think Christina believes it in some level. Like, I think she is like taking this in as like, oh no, he's around, he's coming to get me, kind of thing. And it's this night, and I can't compliment the cinematography when she like gets up towards the end of the movie to like search for the noise that she's hearing or whatever, and we get the shots of the hand going up the stairs. We get the shots of her going down the dark hallway, looking around the corner. All of this stuff is beautiful, and it's like, damn, like Clouzot. Like I said this about like Bergman the last time we did a Criterion episode, but Clouzot, if he ever just did a straight horror movie, like it would probably be fire, because these sequences of just shadows and silence are gorgeous, and that's so well paced.
That's the thing. The silence is what gets me, because I kept on, like, this is a high tension scene, and I kept waiting for like the strings to come in. I kept waiting for that stereotypical stinger noise of like, oh God, what's coming after her? But there's nothing. It's just
it never
dead
comes.
Silence.
Yeah,
it's so creepy.
It never comes. They orchestrate this whole thing where they can hear his typewriter going, and I presume that was Nicole, because Nicole at this point has left. Nicole, or at least she's claimed she's left. Yeah. She because it's Christina's idea. She's like, oh, maybe we should split up now. Now it's maybe a good idea for us not to be together. And Nicole's like, okay, fine, I'll go back home then. And she leaves, but obviously she's still around. But like everything plays out in silence. She goes to the bathroom, and then she turns and sees her husband's dead body in the bathtub. And then he starts to move, and he slowly starts to stand up. And this shot, which again is playing out in complete silence, it's one of those moments where you're like, okay, this is an iconic movie scene. Like the first time I watched this, I'm like, no, this is something that's inspired so many filmmakers. You just get that vibe the second you see this play out. But he slowly stands up, and sure enough, she's clutching her chest, and she has a heart attack, and she dies. And we keep with him standing up, and then once he's completely upright, there's just a little pause, and then he brings up his hand, and he takes out the white contacts he had to make him look really creepy. And you're like, wait a minute, this is a fabrication. This is all something he's done. And he gets out.
And this is like last 2 minutes of the movie. Like we have gone a full 2 hours now. We are barreling towards the end.
And we're just being hit with this truth. And he gets out, and I love how he gets out. He's dripping wet. And we get kind of like I was saying about the detail about how long it took to get in the tub. The entire thing we see of him getting out the tub, and he's dripping wet, and he's having to change his coat and all that. I'm like, I love that it's kind of like showing you the realities of him having to do this, where it's like, okay, now it's not just the mystery and the glossy kind of final product of the trick. It's now we're seeing, no, here's the reality of him getting out, and he's soaking wet, and how he's having to tiptoe around, and then he opens the door, and Nicole pops her head round the corner, and she's like, is it done? It's like, yeah, it took her longer than expected. Weak heart my ass, but it's done. We're going to sell the school. We're going to have all of our money. And there's no big music sting, like you said. It all just plays out in silence. And then likewise, the very sort of final part of this is the detective comes around the corner, having heard this entire conversation, and says, yeah, you're going to get a lot. You're going to get 15 to 20 years, depending on the judge. And it's like, oh, like this was just like, oh, chef's kiss. Like this, as far as the payoff goes to the whole thing, and this is a thing where, well, okay, the villains don't win because they get caught, but they succeed in like the main part of the plan.
The villains don't win, but everybody loses. There is no winner in this.
Yeah, it's not a cheery film. There is like a weird like moment of hope at the end, which is kind of just a little like, a little touch at the end. Like I don't really need it, but they do this little thing where they're all leaving the school because it's shutting down, and one of the other teachers catches the kid who was punished before by the principal, and no one believed him. They catch him again doing something. I can't even remember. He's got his slingshot back, I think.
He breaks the window again.
Yeah. And he's like, where did you get your slingshot? And he says, oh, Christina gave it to me. And he's like, son, she's dead. And he's like,
Go
no.
stand in the corner.
He's like, no, I saw her. I did. No one believes me. And that's how the movie ends. And because he was definitely right the first time about the principal, it's just a little thing where, okay, this movie turned out not to be supernatural, but maybe, just maybe, like, she gets a happy ending in death, being finally freed from these awful people who were manipulating her and treating her like shit the entire movie. Just a little possible hopeful touch at the end. But
I mean, you say that, but now, like you said, they're closing down the whole school. She's just going to be a ghost for this empty school forever.
Yeah. I mean, unless you think it's maybe suggesting that, did she fake the heart attack? That would be something.
If so, possible. I'm not saying that it's not. With what we've seen in this movie, clearly she could have done the same thing that he was doing. But I don't think that she would be able to let them both go to jail. I think they're in the situation where she dies of a heart attack, there needs to be a body, unlike drowning.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm just throwing it out there because the earlier example, it turned out he was alive. So
it does strike me like it seems like in the 90s movie, that would be the sort of thing where like it would play out exactly the same, and then the final shot would be like her in the driver's seat of a car leaving the school. And you're like, oh, did she manage to get away with it?
Yeah, life's so much better now that I'm dead. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say what that's a reference to because it spoils something else.
Say,
but but those of you who know. I think the ending's magical. It's one of those things where I think the first like 45 to 50 minutes is like perfect like movie thriller build up of a plan and like seeing how it all plays out, and then you've got like an hour of the. It's the sort of subsections to that hour that comes after that where it's like, okay, here's where they're like, planting the body, waiting for it to be found. Oh shit, where is the body? This is what I was saying earlier, is how there's always a question for the audience. That's what I was getting at, is that once the murder, quote unquote, happens, it's like, okay, how are they going to plant the body? Okay, when's it going to be found? We're waiting along with the characters for that discovery. And it's like, okay, where's the body then? Okay, is he alive? Is he a ghost? Is it supernatural? What's this building up to? Like, there's always a pertinent question for every section of this movie that keeps you hooked for the next part that's to come.
And that's exactly what I was saying at the beginning too, is that it flows perfectly. Like they go from, are we going to be able to kill this guy? And then the moment he's dead, it then translates over to, how do we get rid of the body? And then the moment that's done, it translates to, who's going to find the body? When are they going to find the body? It's just a constant stream of tension the whole way through that never gives you a second to just breathe on it.
Yeah, and if anything, I feel like we moved through some of that quickly, where like there's a lot of like stuff with Christina watching from the window, because the whole point is that someone else should find the body because it's too suspicious if one of them does. So, but she's like can't take it. She's like, she's watching like the caretaker walk past the pool, and she's like on edge, like she's meant to be teaching a classroom of kids, and she's just staring at. I'm like, this looks pretty suspicious too, Christina. You should probably just like not look at it,
Well, it goes back to that Hitchcock bomb under the table thing. But like from the audience perspective, she's the audience there, where we all know it's there. We just want it to happen already. We can't take this anymore. We need it to be resolved. It just happens to be in her case. Once it's resolved, if she's involved in it at all, it's going to implicate her. So it's that balance of, she needs it resolved, but she can't make it her.
It's a bomb under the table, but then you look under the table and the bomb's disappeared, and it's like, oh shit, where's the bomb?
Yeah, that's like the other case.
So that's how this movie plays out. But no, you're right. Like this movie's a series of bombs under tables, but you don't always know the context of the bomb under the table. Depending on which part of the movie you're at. And it just keeps you guessing. It keeps you sort of going through. And I think it works really well in repeat viewings because you sort of watch it with this other like lens of, okay, how is Nicole manipulating her? How is she playing her at certain points to make her more riled up as we're getting towards the back half? And she wants her to be primed. We get to the point where she's having trouble. She's having palpitations or whatever. And they call in the doctor. And I like that because it's like, okay, it's time to enact the final big scare because the doctor said she has to rest. So it's like, okay, she's on the edge. This is the time. If we're going to scare her into a heart attack, this is when we have to go because she's at that brink. So I appreciate that. I think I think when I watched it and loved it, and then like some time had passed, and when I went to see it a second time, I'd forgotten some of the details. I'd forgotten they'd done that. I'd forgotten that they had the doctor saying, "Oh no, you're actually really, at the end of the line here. You need to rest. You have to let yourself like calm down." I love that because it's not a plot hole when I thought it wasn't there, but it was like, oh, it's like, this idea you can just scare someone into a heart attack. But the movie does a good job of building you up to like, no, she's there. Like she is primed for it.
Yeah. It's one of those things in a lot of other movies, whenever somebody says they have like a heart condition or something, and then they never actually do anything with it right up until the big moment where, oh no, all of a sudden right now it's a problem. This movie does a much better job at, they from the beginning tell you it's there. Plenty of characters are telling you she looks sick, she looks ill, she doesn't look like she should be up walking around. And then when it finally does come time for that big climax, they double down and say, not only do you have that heart condition, but it is significantly worse than it has been throughout this movie. So you need to stop and not get scared at all.
Which, unfortunately for her, she's about to be the most terrified and on edge that she's ever been. Yeah. And honestly, all of this, I think the title of this movie is perfect. Like, whatever version you look at, The Devils, The Fiends, Diabolique, all of it is like, yeah, if you think about what these two people have done to this woman and how they've built her up to be murdered because they want her money and they want to sell her school, it is diabolical. That's the only word for it. It is absolutely evil.
Yeah. But of course it works the other way as well, where you think that it applies to the two femme fatales. You think it applies to the women who killed the husband. It works on both regards there. It's very clever like that.
Well, it still counts for him even in that context because he kind of earns it. Like you kind of hate him as well. So it kind of feels like, oh, it's everyone. But when it all comes together and you realize, no, not only is he like as awful as we think, he's actually the one perpetrating all this, and he's the one who's plotted the murder. It's like, oh no, he is just the worst. Okay, he's Satan.
Yeah, that is the one thing I wonder, because we never actually get to see entirely the backstory. We hear them talking about how the plan came to fruition, but we never see how it happened. I wonder whose idea like it really was. Who was the first one to take that push? Was it Nicole or was it him?
Oh, for the real plan, not the, because I assume Nicole brought it up for the plan with
for the
Christina.
Fake plan, yeah,
because obviously she wants to goad her into it because that's part of the whole plan. That's a good question. I don't know. Like, obviously everything we get from him, like the idea that he just married her for her money, seems like maybe he was always wanting her to like go out the picture at some point, even if he wasn't planning to kill her when he married her. Yeah. It was always like a scheming mind. But Nicole like keeps such a straight face and plays her part where she's confident until she wants to ramp up the tension. Because it's that thing where, because she's so confident around Christina for most of the movie, when she does start to lose her cool, that's only going to make Christina feel more scared, because like the person who's being confident this entire time, it's the same with filmmaking. If you have a character who's like strong and not scared the whole movie, but then you show them getting scared, that tells the audience, oh, it's time to really get scared. So that's just what she's doing. I mean, let's call it what it is. She's gaslighting her. Like her and the husband are gaslighting her throughout this whole movie. They could have called it that, gaslighting the movie. Oh, it would give away the ending, I suppose. But
also, I think there's already a play called Gaslighting. That's where the term came from. But fair enough.
I did not know that's where it came from.
Yeah, it was I forget the whole backstory of it, but it's a thing where essentially the husband would light a gas, like an actual gas torch sort of thing, and he would, deny that he was doing things to his wife or whatever. It was textbook what the term came from.
So. Does it predate Diabolique? I'm curious.
I'm not sure when the book was written.
Because using gaslighting
is based off of.
Because using the term gaslighting is definitely quite modern in terms of it being a common thing that's said.
Movie adaptation of Gaslight came out in 1944.
Oh, so it's old then. Okay, fair enough. But that is a modern thing though, to use that term like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, well, that's interesting. All the same. The performances here are really good. Obviously, Nicole's as the actual femme fatale, and even when they're doing the plan in the first half, Christina never comes across as a femme fatale. She's reluctant, but kind of pushed into this deep end, intentionally so by the people who are doing it. But she's very reluctant. She even says at one point she doesn't want to get divorced because she's religious, and she sees that as as blasphemous.
She's played as innocent the whole way through the movie. Even after he's killed, she's still played as hating every second of this and just wanting to come clean. In fact, we skipped over at the end, right before the big final climax scene. She's essentially on her deathbed, and she just confesses the whole thing to the detective. But the detective has already found, supposedly, the husband, and he's like, yeah, no, you didn't kill him. I found him. He's going to be here tomorrow morning.
That's true. Yeah, I always forget about this scene. This is... Yeah, so it's like, okay, has he actually found him? And I think he has. I think the way he pops out at the end implies that he followed him back to this school. You know, he's keeping an eye on him. Yeah.
He probably was back in his hotel room that Christina found, and then he managed to track him down from there.
Yeah. If anything, you could probably read that scene as like when he hears this confession, he's like, oh, you're delirious because you're sick, and clearly you don't know what you're saying. And then obviously when he gets to the end and he hears the rest of that conversation between the two villains, he's like, oh, so they did make her think that she'd committed murder. Okay.
See, I agree to a certain extent. However, I think that what may have actually done in the whole plot was that he specifically says, oh, wait, you weren't alone, were you? And she says, no, I was with Nicole. And it's at that point that he gets up and leaves, and he's like, don't worry, you'll be acquitted. Because I think at that point, he's figured it all out. He's like, Nicole was helping to frame this murder. She must be in on it. And I think he probably actually followed her to...
Very possibly. That would make sense.
Get everything back. Because obviously Nicole came down the same hallway that then he came down minutes later.
Yeah. Plus, Michelle mentioned that it took him an hour to get into the bathtub, so that implies that he's been in the building for a while at that point. So you're probably right. Yeah, he's probably following Nicole instead of him. That makes sense. So... Yeah, I think all of that stuff is very intricate and it all kind of holds up. I think on a repeat viewing, you kind of appreciate like all of the signs that they're up to something and all the things they're doing to like present it as this story to Christina to rile her up. And I also wonder as well, like, was it always a plan to have this big final moment where he gets out the tub like a ghost almost? Because it kind of sounds like they were hoping that she'd have a heart attack at any point, and this was like, okay, we have to think of something bigger to scare the shit out of her now, and this was the end game. And it was a bit of a gamble, because if this didn't kill her, then the jig is kind of up. Like, if if he stands up and she's still alive, and he sort of like maybe tries to be scary for a minute, and it still doesn't work, it's like at a certain point she's like, wait a minute, you're just alive. What's going on here?
I mean, there may have been a backup plan. They could have done something like maybe she would have run out of the room at a certain point, and he could have then made an escape there. And then everyone's like, oh, you're seeing visions of your dead husband drowning in a bathtub? That's weird. They might have even, if she didn't die, she already confessed to the police that he was dead or that she murdered him. So even if he comes back, they may be able to get her on attempted murder at the very least.
Yeah, although it is worth mentioning, as at one point she starts fighting Nicole when they're getting stressed about it. She does point out that other than give him the sedative and the drink, she doesn't actually do any of the plan. Like, Nicole's the one who puts his head under the water. It was Nicole's idea. Nicole like mapped out the plan. Like, all of it was really her.
But that's with the belief that nobody would be able to corroborate either story. Now that the husband would actually be back alive, he could make up a completely fake story saying that she was the one who did all of it, freeing Nicole from that.
Oh, true. I'm just pointing out, if you look at the plan itself, how much of it's actually Nicole, which makes sense because she's not actually killing him. So,
like, I could see 100 ways this plan could have gone wrong. Like, if Christina like really got pissed off during the part where she was slapped, and she just decided, screw this, I'm gonna stab him. Plan's out the window.
Honestly,
all that's gone.
Like, that's almost just a different movie. You could make another movie where it starts off like Diabolique, but the difference is that the wife who's being tricked actually just kills him in the moment of rage. And then Nicole's like, we have to cover this up, I guess.
Because now she's actually implicated in a murder.
Yeah, that would actually be a really intricate twist on this. Maybe it's even been done somewhere that I can't think of.
Diabolique 2, Boogaloo.
That's good stuff. Performances, I think are good across the board. Actually, one of the things I was going to say actually earlier on that I didn't want to say until spoilers is that sadly, Véra Clouzot, who plays Christina, actually did die of a heart attack quite young. She died in 1960 at the age, I think she was 43, of a heart attack. That is very young. And apparently Clouzot got quite depressed about it, understandably.
Yeah, sure.
But I just think that's kind of wild. Like, that the whole plot of this movie, she has a heart condition and then dies of one at the end, and then she died really that way. Less than a decade later, only 5 years later, even. So, that's a super eerie bit of coincidence, honestly.
Yeah. If anything, it makes that final scene with the kids seeing her ghost just that little more poignant.
Yeah, and unintentionally so, but in hindsight, it's like, oh, that's kind of nuts. But I guess you could say, it's like movies, like the in a weird way, if an actor who's passed away lives on through their work, and like they're always there to go and watch again, kind of thing. Like there's a kind of a nice little tribute element to that. But it's kind of nuts. But yeah, I wanted to mention. I think all three of the leads are all very good in the roles.
I don't think there's really a weak part of this movie. I can't think of any actor that once he started going off, I was like, okay, let's tone it down there, Hamlet. Like, they were all very believable in how they delivered their roles. The only thing that was over the top were the two neighbor characters, but we already said they basically were supposed to be cartoon characters the whole time.
Yeah,
they were written as that. So
they were entertaining, and the whole kind of point of them is that they are loud and they would corroborate the story, but also wouldn't get in the way of the actual plan. They're kind of perfect in that sense because they're always listening to the radio, so they're not going to hear a lot of the incriminating stuff. And like, what are they going to say? We heard them rowing a bath. It's not exactly suspicious.
No.
So, I think, like you say, there's not a weak element to this movie. The pacing is strong. The twist is fantastic. The character dynamics and the motivations of the characters, this malicious, like, trying to, like, screw this woman out of anything she has. And again, keep in mind, their whole plan here is to kill this woman with a heart attack from fear, so they can take her school and whatever she has and sell it so they can have their own money. And it's like, okay, can we just point out here that this character, Christina, we find out got this school and chose to keep it rather than sell it because she wants to teach children because she sees value in that rather than just being rich. So not only is she like this, abused wife figure, she's also this kind of like morally very good person who wants to, raise the future of the country. She's got a heart of gold, and these two awful people strip her down, tear her down until she dies. Like, so
that's why you don't trust the landlord.
Oh dear. So it just really paints just how vicious and malicious, and that rhyme didn't even mean that. Those two characters are, and I think that's just wonderful. So
absolutely,
it's excellent stuff. So
I mean, beyond that, there's not much more I really want to say.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. I
think the only thing that gives it a little bit of extra kick to it is, like we said, there's that epilogue scene, but then they do have at the very end that stinger screen that basically says, "All right, you saw the movie, don't talk about it. Shut up. Let your friends watch this as a virgin viewing. Don't ruin this for them."
Yeah.
And obviously that's not exactly common in films, even thrillers at the time. It's just, I guess they were really, really proud of that twist, and for good reason.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I gushed about this when I first saw it, and it still holds up now. It's such a meticulously paced, well performed, and just phenomenally directed movie. Watch it even knowing where it's going. When those quiet moments come in, like you feel your breath kind of hold as you're waiting for the release to happen. It's very, very good stuff. So with all that said, David, what are you rating Diabolique?
So, like I said, it's not quite up as high as Wages of Fear for me, but it is still very good. It's a very well-paced movie. The twists are good. I do think it is, for me personally, there were a couple things, and it might have been because I saw the IMDb profile. It might have been because I've just seen the 70 years worth of movies since then. But for at least the first half of the movie, I was kind of getting where it was going. It didn't seem as tense to me as maybe it should have. Obviously, the tension was still there. It just was missing a little something. But it's still great the whole way through. And the final twist more than makes up for all that. So I would say this is a very solid 9 for me. I definitely think it's one of the better ones that we've done, even just on the Criterion show.
Yeah, Yeah, for me, it's a straight 10.
Okay.
It's just, I said it was a masterpiece. I said it's in my top 10. And, obviously that shuffles around a little bit as to how high it actually is at any given point. But, it's not faltered in all this time.
Right.
It's phenomenal. It's, this was such a discovery for me when I saw this, because this was the first Clouzot film I saw. It was like, oh shit, I just discovered someone who might be one of the best directors of all time. And throughout what I've seen of his, I think all of his films are at least great. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I think this and Wages of Fear are his two best that I've seen. I think any other ones that we do down the line, they're going to be good films that are going to have great talking points and themes and all those kind of things. But these two are definitely the ones that stand out as being the big ones you tell people to watch first. These are the two that are going to get you hooked. So
no, yeah, for sure.
So excellent stuff.
And I mean, I'm assuming that you're going to want to put it at a cut above.
It's a cut above. It's a cut above.
I won't argue it. I think it is definitely something that needs to be checked out. So
yes, it is tied for first place. It's a 3-way tie for the highest rated movie that we've done on Collector's Cut. And one of the other ones is Wages of Fear. Just point in fact.
Bravo, Clouzot. You're doing great.
Yes. Clouzot for much time was Inspector Clouzot from the Pink Panther series, but then Henri-Georges Clouzot came in and said, no, I'm reclaiming that name, even though all his films were mostly before those films. But that's
I was going to say, that's a weird time loop going on there.
Yeah. He was still making movies up into the 70s. Of the films of his I've seen, only one of them was in color, and that was one from the 70s. But maybe we'll get to that at some point. But that is Diabolique. That is our thoughts on one of the best movies ever made. So if you haven't watched it and you listened to this entire conversation, I'm sad because we spoiled everything for you, but you made that choice. Go and watch the movie now. Well worth doing.
You can pretty much get it wherever. It's also free on YouTube at the current moment, so check it out.
Is it in HD on YouTube? Is it?
I don't know about HD, but it is in the original French and English dubs. There's 2 separate uploads for each of those. Okay. So
interesting.
Even if French films aren't your thing, you can still enjoy it.
That said, you can get it in the nice 1080p remaster on Criterion's app. So, or the Blu-ray, of course, if you fancy collecting those still.
Import that Region A Blu-ray.
Oh, there's a Region B one now, because they started releasing Criterion's much later after I was doing it.
Just to be inconvenient for you.
Yeah. That said, though, the UK ones have the big, ugly, age certificates on the cover. It's oh man, these are such clean covers, and then you put this big 15 in the corner.
I'm not a big believer of deregulation, but rating scales, toss them. Don't need them.
You can just put them on the back. They don't have to be in the front. Okay, that's all. That's all I want.
But how am I, as a parent, supposed to know that, Pete? How am I supposed to know what's on the back when my child decides to pick up a 1955 French film?
Yeah, how many kids are picking up Diabolique and saying, hey, Mom, Dad, I want to watch this.
I think it has Sharon Stone in it.
Next month, we will be doing a samurai movie. We don't know which one yet because it was a vote. By the time this goes out, you will know what it is because it'll have been announced on Patreon after the vote's done. But we don't know that at the time of recording. But there will be a samurai film that is not Kurosawa. That is the only thing we can say.
Correct.
It is a non-Kurosawa samurai movie. So we'll see you for that next week, or next month, I should say. Just pay attention to the Patreon for announcing at the start of the month what the previous vote winners were, whenever that vote wraps up. But that is the show. Hopefully you've enjoyed sitting with us for this prestigious, thrilling time. But we are now wrapping up, and we will see you next time. Thank you for being patrons or YouTube members. It helps out a lot, and look forward to more. Extra reels later in the month is going to be our second Neil Breen film. So look forward to that little gem called I Am Here Now. So thank you very much for joining. For the audio listeners, David just downed his entire drink when I mentioned we're doing Neil Breen soon. So thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies. And in the words of Martin Scorsese, Gary Busey, and Tommy Wiseau, this is cinema.